Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, the show for IT professionals and managed service providers, where we help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. Today, I'm going to be diving into something that could be quietly reshaping how every serious incident in your client's environments gets handled. CISA is pushing to bake MSP-specific rules into the federal cyber incident reporting regime. We're talking things like a 72-hour reporting clock, ransom disclosures, and potential enforcement if you or your clients don't play by the rules. So if you touch industries such as healthcare, finance, local government, or you're building anything on open source, hopefully this episode will be your heads up before CIRCIA becomes one more compliance acronym your clients have to throw at you. So first, let's get set on what CIRCIA is. Passed in 2022, the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act directs CISA to build rules that require covered entities to report covered cyber incidents within 72 hours and ransom payments within 24 hours of making the payment. Critical infrastructure is defined very broadly: communications, energy, financial services, healthcare, IT, and many more under existing federal policy. So CISA first published these proposed rules in April of 2024, but after strong feedback from industry and lawmakers, finalization was pushed back from a target of September 2025 to at least May of 2026. So to get this right, CISA is now running a new series of virtual town halls and gathering written feedback before locking in the final regime. So for your IT business, this means if you support regulated verticals, healthcare, finance, government, utilities, CIRCIA will become part of your client's compliance vocabulary. Your incident response playbooks will need to produce regulator-ready reports inside that 72-hour window, and even if your company is not directly designated as a covered entity, your team will almost certainly be the one assembling the technical details your clients must send to CISA. Now, a big point of tension is who actually gets pulled under these rules. So CISA's proposal uses both sector-based criteria and size-based thresholds that sit above the Small Business Administration's definitions. In its own analysis, CISA estimates that more than 30,000 organizations would be covered solely because they exceed those size thresholds, even if they don't meet any of the sector criteria. In its latest notice, CISA is openly asking whether to keep those size-based thresholds at all or lean more heavily on sector-specific definitions. It's also questioning whether it needs more tailored criteria for sectors like commercial facilities, dams, food and agriculture, or whether to borrow models from other regulations such as the EPA's Risk Management Program for chemical facilities. Now, what does this mean for MSPs? It means that you can't assume you're out of scope just because you only deliver services. If you're mid-size or larger, size alone might bring you in. But you should be mapping which of your clients are likely to be covered entities and preparing for where CIRCIA-driven reporting will land, so you're not surprised when a client's compliance officer starts asking you about your incident processes. So here's where it gets kind of real for us. In its February update, CISA explicitly asked whether the final CIRCIA rules should include specific applicability criteria for managed service providers and cloud service providers. So this focus on MSPs and CSPs in the IT sector means particularly those that rely on open source software in their proprietary offerings or host code repositories that, if compromised, could create large-scale downstream risk. CISA is exploring whether these providers should be treated as covered entities when they integrate open source components or maintain those repositories, especially if they might cascade across many customers. It also wants feedback on whether incidents revolving open source software, open source code, or repositories should carry additional reporting requirements above and beyond standard incidents. So, what does this translate into? Your obligations may depend not only which clients you serve, but what's under the hood of your stack, your RMM custom scripts, your automation glue, your internal tools, and any open source libraries you rely on. CISA is pairing this with an effort to clarify what actually counts as substantial cyber incidents. It's offering examples of what is and is not reportable and actively soliciting feedback from industry about where to draw that line. It also wants to tighten definitions like substantially similar information and substantially similar time frame so that entities covered by multiple federal rules might be able to satisfy several regulators with one well-crafted report. So for MSPs and MSPs, this opens a new front. You'll need a clear software bill of materials, not just for client apps, but for your own platforms and tooling. Incidents tied to open source components may trigger coordinated reporting obligations. Now, it's worth stating now to tag incidents in your ticketing and IR systems that involve open source or shared components so you understand how often this comes up and how big the impact might be. So what does CISA expect from an incident report? Well, the new rules, the proposed rules, come with a detailed checklist. For any covered incident, entities must submit technical details of affected systems and networks, descriptions of unauthorized access, full incident timelines, operational impact assessments, exploited vulnerabilities, attacker tactics, techniques, and procedures, indicators of compromise, and the mitigation steps taken. So here's the problem. Pulling all of that together within 72 hours is extremely challenging, especially in complex environments or multi-party incidents. So CISA is now specifically asking whether this is realistic and where adjustments are needed to be made without sacrificing the value of the data. What does this really mean? Well, here's what you may want to do. You may want to invest in tooling that can automatically aggregate evidence from your EDR, SIEM, and RMM into a single report. CIRCIA will have teeth if CISA believes a covered entity experienced a reportable incident or paid a ransom and failed to report it. It can issue a formal request for information. If the entity doesn't respond adequately, CISA can escalate to a subpoena. Continued non-cooperation can then be referred to the Department of Justice for enforcement, including potential contempt proceedings. So CISA is asking for feedback on how to refine this request for information process, but the enforcement arc is clear. Once you're in scope, choosing not to report is risky. So from an MSP perspective, you'll need to define internal processes for triaging and responding to government inquiries on behalf of you or your clients, and that includes deciding who owns regulatory communications, who pays for that time, and how your account managers and incident leads escalate anything that might trigger a report. There's a whole lot more to this, but let's just really get down to what can be done. How can MSPs influence the rules? Well, CISA is running As I mentioned earlier, a series of sector-focused virtual town halls in March, followed by 2 general sessions. So for MSPs and cloud service providers, the marquee event is the session focused on the defense industrial base is the session focused on defense industrial base and information technology sectors. That's where MSPs and CSPs are categorized. So other sessions over chemical, water, healthcare, communications, financial services, and more. And then there's 2 general sessions at the end of March and early April. Registration is available through CISA CIRCIA page, and the agency warns that dates could shift, but these sessions are your chance to bring real-world concerns to the table, specifically things like the 72-hour timelines and the realities of investigating supply chain and open source incidents, et cetera, et cetera. So I will have the links for that in the show notes. So as we step back and look at this, CIRCA, of course, CIRCIA is going to change the way serious incidents are handled across critical infrastructure, and we as MSPs are right in the middle of that. On the risk side, you may end up explicitly defined as a covered entity because of your size, your sector, the clients you serve, or the open source components you depend on. On the opportunity side, your clients will need help maturing their logging, tightening their incident response, tracking software bills of materials, and rewriting contracts to clearly assign responsibilities. That's going to be consulting revenue, project work, and higher value managed service provisions. And higher value managed security services waiting to be scoped. So there's a lot of things that can be done. I guess if there's one takeaway from CIRCIA, it's this. Regulators have finally figured out that MSPs and cloud providers are not just vendors. We are now considered critical infrastructure, but that comes with new risk as well as new opportunity. So if you prepare before these rules land, we should be good. So now is the time to start building your CIRCIA readiness package, putting together inventory where we act as MSP, CSP, or both, and where open source and shared components sit inside our own stack. Probably need to start checking out with legal counsel how to update agreements and incident response retainers so that they reflect these upcoming obligations, and decide if you want to be out front as a CIRCIA ready provider or scrambling later when regulators, insurers, and boards start asking who's on the vendor list that can handle this level of scrutiny. So I just saw that as a news story and wanted to get out some information. Helps me understand it. Hopefully it helps you understand it. And if you would like us to go deeper, or maybe have a live Q&A later, or kind of go over some of these things that would be in a CIRCIA readiness checklist, be sure to drop me a note, send in your questions, email the show. And if this helps you think differently about your risk, be sure to hit subscribe, leave a review, share it with somebody else, and we'll continue to unpack what this really means. So that's it, folks. Just wanted to get that out there. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. And until next time, holla.